The ballroom fell into an uneasy silence, the kind that presses against your chest and makes every breath feel too loud. Crystal chandeliers glowed overhead, reflecting off diamond necklaces and tailored tuxedos, but no one was admiring the decor anymore. All eyes were fixed on the woman sitting beside Richard Hale, the billionaire everyone in the room knew by name. Just hours earlier, she had been scrubbing marble floors in his mansion. Tonight, she wore a simple gown and held her posture with quiet grace. Whispers rippled across the tables, curious, judgmental, amused. People assumed they already knew how the night would end. After all, she was only there because Richard had paid her $5,000 to be his date. A harmless arrangement, some thought. A desperate mistake, others believed. No one imagined that before the evening was over, the most powerful people in the city would be standing on their feet, their champagne forgotten, their carefully constructed worldviews shattered by the very women they had dismissed without a second glance. Richard Hale had not planned for any of this. To him, the gala was just another obligation, another room full of investors, donors, and polished smiles. Appearance mattered, and showing up alone would spark questions he didn't care to answer. When he made the offer to his housekeeper, it was practical, almost careless $5,000 for one evening of pretending. Sit beside him, smile when required, speak only when spoken to. Elena Brooks listened without interrupting, her hands folded neatly, her expression unreadable. She knew what people like him saw when they looked at her: a uniform, a role, a background figure who cleaned up messes and disappeared before the real conversations began. The money represented months of relief from bills she had been drowning in, sacrifices she had made quietly and without complaint. Saying yes felt humiliating. Saying no felt impossible. So she accepted, not with excitement, but with a calm resolve that something about this night would be different. As they prepared to leave, Richard noticed nothing unusual. He didn't see the way Elena observed every detail. The names mentioned in passing, the charity's purpose printed on the invitation, the familiar corporate logos attached to the event. He didn't know that she had once dreamed of standing in rooms like this for very different reasons, or that life had rerouted her path in ways no one ever bothered to ask about. To him, she was simply filling a seat. But to Elena, this was more than a paid evening. It was a rare moment of visibility, a chance she had never asked for but fully intended to use. And as the car pulled up to the glowing entrance of the gala, with cameras flashing and judgment waiting inside, neither of them realized that the balance of power between them was about to shift in a way money could never control. Elena stood in her small bedroom that evening, staring at the dress laid across her bed. It wasn't new, and it certainly wasn't expensive, but she had altered it herself, stitching late into the night until it fit perfectly. As she fastened the last button, memories surfaced: college textbooks she once owned, presentations she had practiced in front of cracked mirrors, the career she paused when life demanded sacrifices instead of ambition. Downstairs, Richard waited impatiently, glancing at his watch, assuming she would need guidance on everything from posture to pronunciation. During the drive, he explained the rules again, his tone polite but distant. Smile. Don't drink too much. Let him handle conversations. Elena nodded, watching city lights blur past the window. She wasn't nervous about embarrassing herself. She was nervous about being invisible. When they arrived, attendants opened the doors and a wave of laughter and music spilled out. Elena took a steady breath. For years, she had cleaned rooms where powerful people celebrated success she never got credit for contributing to. Tonight, she wasn't there to serve. She was there to observe, to remember who she had been before the world decided she was only capable of silence. The moment they entered the gala, conversations paused just long enough to assess her. Eyes traveled from her modest jewelry to her composed posture. Confusion mixing with quiet judgment. Whispers followed them as they walked to their table, some amused, others openly dismissive. A woman in an elegant red gown leaned toward her companion and smirked, assuming Elena wouldn't notice. Richard felt the tension and shifted uncomfortably, suddenly aware of the unspoken hierarchy he had dragged her into. As dinner began, Men in tailored suits debated markets and mergers, speaking over one another with practiced confidence. Elena listened closely, recognizing terms, recalling meetings she once sat in before her life took a different turn. When a prominent donor bragged loudly about a project's success, Elena gently corrected a detail under her breath. The man laughed until she calmly explained the data behind her statement. Forks paused midair. The table grew quiet. Richard stared at her, startled, as the donor cleared his throat and nodded stiffly. Elena returned to her meal as if nothing had happened, but the room had shifted. People began glancing at her with curiosity instead of dismissal, sensing that the woman they had underestimated was not who they assumed she was. Later in the evening, the host invited guests to share brief remarks about why the charity mattered to them. Several speeches passed, polished and predictable, until Elena rose from her chair. Richard instinctively reached out, panic flickering across his face, but she gave him a calm look that stopped him cold. She spoke clearly without notes, her voice steady but warm. She told him she had once worked in the same industry, funding the charity, contributing research that helped launch initiatives many in the room now profited from. She spoke of losing her position when budgets shifted, of becoming a single caregiver, of cleaning offices where decisions were made that reshaped lives like hers. She didn't accuse, she contexted. She explained how the charity wasn't an abstract cause, but a lifeline for people whose potential went unseen. As she finished, silence hung heavy, not with discomfort, but reflection. Richard felt something unfamiliar tighten in his chest. He realized that while he had paid for her presence, he had never truly seen her. Applause broke out slowly, then thundered through the room, rising into a standing ovation that left no doubt. This was the night's most powerful moment. By the end of the gala, donors approached Elena instead of Richard. Conversations shifted, pledges increased, and invitations were extended to meetings she had once only dreamed of attending. When they finally stepped outside into the cool night air, Elena turned to Richard and placed the envelope of money back into his hand. She thanked him quietly, not with bitterness, but dignity. She told him the opportunity mattered more than the payment ever could. Richard struggled for words, his usual confidence stripped away, replaced by genuine humility. In the weeks that followed, Elena's life changed. New opportunities opened, not because she was rescued, but because she was finally recognized. Richard changed, too, questioning the assumptions that had shaped his world for decades. The gala became a story people whispered about for years, not because of wealth or glamour, but because one underestimated woman reminded an entire room that value is not measured by titles or uniforms. Sometimes, all it takes is one moment, one voice, and one seat at the table to change everything. The story did not end with applause or flashing cameras, because the real impact of that night unfolded quietly afterward. The gala was remembered as one of the most successful in the city's history, but for those who were there, it became something more a lesson that lingered long after the lights dimmed. Elena returned to her life changed, not transformed by money or fame, but by recognition. Doors opened that had once been locked, not out of charity, but respect. She stepped into opportunities she had earned long before anyone bothered to look closely enough to see her worth. She never spoke bitterly about the past, because she no longer needed to. Her voice had been heard, and that was enough. Richard, on the other hand, carried the weight of that evening in ways no one expected. For the first time in years, he questioned the quiet assumptions that guided his success. He began to notice the people he once overlooked, the voices drowned out by power and privilege. What started as a transactional decision became a turning point that reshaped how he measured value, not by status, but by substance. And so, the night the millionaire paid his housekeeper $5,000 for a date became something no one could have predicted. He bought an image, but encountered truth. The guests arrived expecting elegance and left with humility. Because sometimes, the most extraordinary presence in the room belongs to the person everyone thought was invisible until they chose to stand.